everybody, this is Char from CharliesAngelTarot, and today I'm going to do the last videos on the Mythic tarot deck. It's a pagan deck, and also this is the last one in the series. I'm first going to do the minor arcana, the numbers, and then I'm going to do the characters, the page, the knight, most probably separate, and also the Queen and King separate, like I've done in the others. And then we have completed this tarot deck. What I'm going to do, if you follow me, then you know that what I'm going to do. I'm going to read from the books and then just shortly go into each card. It's a pagan, it's made by the Mythic Tarot, the new approach to the tarot cards by Julia Charman-Burke and Liz Green. They are pagans or Wiccans, and because they found that the Rider-Waite was more Christian orientated, that's why they've brought it back to the original pagan translation and analyzation. Okay. If you would like to see the swords, the cups, and the pentacles, I've already done those suits. This is the last suit I'm going to do. So the story behind the cards is also mythological, also biblical. You can also find it back in the Bible, and also in the Greek and Roman mythology or history and culture. So that's why they are dressed like Romans or Greeks. You might see something back from the Vikings as well, all this type of thing. And that, yeah, I just love this deck. It's very simple. It's great if you're a starter, because you do have the basics, but like Rider-Waite, a man standing with two wands, things like that. But I'll go back into that later. Okay, so here we go. This is 1 to 10, so that's the ace to 10, and the suit of wands, the numbered cards. The story of Jason and the Argonauts and their expedition to seek the Golden Fleece. That's the Golden Fleece. In a characteristic heroic tale full of adventure and courageous journeying into the unknown, before the story is really a quest, where the hero must rely on faculties other than will and rational thought. Jason's story may be seen as a portrayal of the creative imagination and its mysterious power to move events and provide solutions from inner levels, which elude our conscious understanding. Thus, the story of Jason is a specialized adventure which circles around the central motive of the human imagination. The origin of the Golden Fleece, the magical goal of Jason's quest, was this thrill, Exus and Hel, the two children of Athamas and the Aeolian, were hated by their stepmother Ino. Their very lives were threatened, and they fled, mounted on a fabulous ram, which was the gift of Zeus, king of the gods. The ram was endowed with reason and speech. It had a fleece of gold and could move through the air as well as it could over the earth. In the course of their flight, Hel fell into the sea, which was afterward called the Hellespont. So it's Hellespont, and let me see. I don't see them flying here on the ram, but it is in the deck. You do see it. So it could be with the swords. And here you've got the Golden Fleece. You'll have to look back in the swords episode. Phyrexus was luckier and reached Chalcis on the Black Sea. There he sacrificed the ram to his protector Zeus, there you go, and offered its fleece to the king of the country Atys, who hung it from a tree and set a dragon who never slept to guard it. Meanwhile, at Iolcos in Thessaly reigned King Peleus, who had wrenched the throne from his brother Aeson. Sorry if I pronounce these names wrong. Aeson's son Jason had been confided to the care of the centaur Chiron when he was a baby, protect him from the wrath of his usurping uncle Peleus. Chiron eventually made known to the child, grown to manhood, the secret of his origin, and Jason went to his uncle and demanded rule of the kingdom according to his right. Peleus was frightened, for an oracle had warned him of a man wearing one sandal, and his son Jason had appeared with only 1 foot shot, having lost the other sandal while crossing the river. Therefore Peleus promised Jason that he would willingly comply with his demand, but that he had one small request to make, that Jason go to Chalcis on the Black Sea and bring back the golden fleece with the properly belonged at Zeus' sanctuary in Iolcos. So Jason proceeded to build a ship with 50 oars, the Argo in which he had set an abode of the prophet Oak of Zeus from Dodona. He gathered together the most famous heroes, among whom were Castor and Polydeus, the warrior twins, Hercules, Orpheus, and the singer, and King Theseus of Athens. Then the hardy adventurer set forth in search of the fabled golden fleece. Their voyage was full of incident, and they were forced to struggle against monsters and men, as well as against the elements. Finally, they reached the kingdom of Atys, where the fleece was kept. Luckily for Jason, King Atys' daughter, the sorceress Medea, fell in love with him and helped him to vanquish the dragon, which guarded the precious trophy. King Atys tried to stop the escaped Argonauts with ferocious soldiers sprung from the teeth of the dragon, which Jason had slain, but the heroes managed to sail off in their ship. Argo, with Atys in hot pursuit, Medea, who had accompanied Jason, was however not averse to stopping her father by the most brutal means, and cut up her brother Apsyrtus and scattered the pieces of his body across the water in grief. Atys called his fleet to stop and gather up the dismembered body of their heir, and that is the king. And Jason and his crew now had clear sailing back to Iolcos. This return voyage, however, proved to be as perilous as the outgoing one, and Jason and his crew once again had to sail through a terrible clashing rocks at the north end of Bosphorus, which could crush a ship, and which stood between him and safe harbour. At last he reached Icosis with the golden fleece. There he discovered that Pelios had put his father Aeson to death, being certain that Jason would never return from the hazardous voyage. Jason avenged himself on his uncle through Medea, who through her magic spell charmed Pelias' daughters into murdering him. After this, Jason reigned as king of Icosis, but his victory had perhaps gone to his head, for unfortunately with one kingship he sought another, the crown of Corinth, by marrying Creusaia, the daughter of Corinth's king Creon. This understandably angered Medea, who avenged herself by murdering not only Creusaia, but the children she had borne Jason as well. As far as Jason, some say that he grew weary of life and found the kingship of Icosis a burden, as an old man looking forever backward to the day of his glory. He sat dreaming in the shade of the rotting hulk of the Argo, that's the ship, and the poop fell on him and crushed him to death. Wow, what a horrible death. I know it sounds horrific, but that's the Roman and the times and the Greek times. They used to be ferocious, like the Vikings. Okay, now we've got the Ace of Wands, and the Ace of Wands, that is also, I'll read a little bit of it. You can still get the book. It is in this color, I believe, and paperback, so you can find that on Amazon. Okay, and this is made by Kinderbooks. Okay, Kinderbooks. Okay, so that's where it is, and I'll leave the IBSN number in the description box. They've written several other books. An Edison added edition, and this book is from, I believe, 1986. So this is quite an old book. Okay, so the Ace. In the Ace of Wands, we meet again Zeus, the king of gods, the initiator and moving power behind the tale of Jason and the golden fleece. It is Zeus' sacred fleece that the hero must obtain, and it is this fleece which serves as a symbol of creative vision, which spurs us away from the safe conventional world into the unknown paths toward an imagined goal. So that's this one. And it's holding a world. Beautiful. I like the stories behind it. I do love mythology. Okay. And history. Then we go on to the Two of Wands. Now the Ace of Wands means new beginnings, new action. This could be a new job, creativity, hobby, being strategic, planning, and taking action, of course. The Ace of Wands also represents Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. The Two of Wands is partnering up in the tarot, making plans for the future. You could be partnering up in business because it's action. This is also this suit is more like career orientated besides just passion. Now here we see like a Capricorn here in the back, half man, half beast. Also, that's what it looks like. It could also be a Sagittarius, I don't know, but that's the half of a horse and a body of a man, top half. So the Two of Wands, like the other twos of the minor arcana, polarizes the raw energy of the ace, and here the polarization implies the adventure and his newly conceived goal. The restlessness and unformed power of the ace has begun to develop as a particular vision, although just how that vision might be achieved is not at all clear. Jason does not yet know about the golden fleece, but he knows now because Chiron has told him that he is a prince and the rightful heir to the throne of Icos, and that his father Aeson has been deposed and imprisoned by his wicked uncle Pelias. The feeling of potential has here crystallized into something definite, although the real creative adventure of Jason's future, the pursuit of the Golden Fleece, will only emerge once Jason steps forth on the first stage of his journey. So that's the story behind that card. Then we've got the Three of Wands. The Three of Wands, let's have a look. There's quite a bit of description, as you can see, for each card. So here in the Three of Wands is a 1.5 page. The Three of Wands. The Three of Wands, like the other threes in the minor arcana, represent a stage of initial completion. Here is the apparent completion of the original creative idea. There is a cause for celebration, and it seems everything is going according to plan. Jason has arrived at the place of his inheritance, and so hold and behold. He has met with no apparent resistance. Pelias, frightened of the oracle, seems quite willing to abdicate the throne he has stolen. Thus, creative work often seems to have an initial ease. The right contacts appear as if by magic. The preliminary sketches look good, and the idea appears to be gathering substance to itself, and though it has been probed by divine intervention. So the Three of Wands means abundance. Boats, usually you see in the Rider-Waite, you see little boats coming in, coming back home, and that's what is different here. That's Pelias that has stolen the crown and giving it back to Jason, and he's frightened. You can see that. That's the story. So this is not the Rider-Waite's image of somebody standing there with three wands, looking out onto the horizon, seeing boats coming in. That's the difference. And here again, this is the oracle had said there will be a man with one sandal. So that's the king, and that's why he's giving it back. You've heard that in the story as well. Now we're going on to the Four of Wands, and that's usually the celebration card, the marriage card, but here you definitely only see Jason and all the heroes ready to depart. Okay. The Four of Wands is a card of harvest and reward. The challenge of new creative idea has been met. Hard work has been applied, and now the individual can reap the solid reward which has been earned through effort. Like the Three of Wands, this card implies something worth celebrating, but unlike the three, it has a more solid base, and benefits are already evident. The challenge of capturing the Golden Fleece is a daunting one. How can one man alone sail to the ends of the earth, and in what? Jason has responded to his challenge by gathering around him those friends who can help him to achieve his aims. Okay, now there's more to the card, but I can't otherwise go on, otherwise I can't upload the video, my darlings. And I might split it up 5 and 5 because it's already 20 minutes. So I've only got a little laptop. Sorry about that. The 5 of Wands represents struggle. Here the creative vision has collided with earthly reality in the form of a dragon, which in myth has always represented the primitive powers of the earth, which resist change. The problem of accommodating limitations of practical life, and the limitation of one's own regressive inertia is the greatest challenge. So one's own ego, I think, and it's very old English, I think, but the 5 of Wands usually means competition or little disagreements, arguments, but not that it's not like the 5 of Swords. The 5 Wands is arguments that are short-lived. Okay, so it's to do with your ego. Is the greatest challenge to any individual wishing to regressive inertia, is the greatest challenge to express the power of his or her creative imagination in actual life. And that is the 5 cards. So 2 from the suit of Wands, 6 to 10, and I'm only going to read a paragraph because it's quite long, and even with the characters, the king and the queen, it gets really long, and I can't load the videos up if they're too long. So I'm just going into the little bit of the story. Okay. The 6 of Wands. The 6 of Wands represents an experience of triumph, recognition by others, and public acclaim. The battle with the dragon has been fought, and Jason has earned his reward. The fleece is in his hands, and his crew raise their wands high to honor and acknowledge him. This card represents a heady moment or a heady moment for the individual who has been striving to express some new idea or creative vision to others, for it is the moment when we are given validation of the collective from our efforts. The creative venture has been given the stamp of approval, not just by our loved ones, but by the world out there, which in the 5 appears initially as a terrible earth dragon which seemed to thrall all efforts. And that was in number 5. Number 5, there's the dragon. You look back to the first part, and in the first part I've also read the story behind the suit of Wands, and also you will hear bits of the journey and how it went. Now we're going on to the 7 of Wands. And usually in Rider-Waite you see somebody standing. With the 6 of Wands, it's somebody coming in on a horse, people hailing the victor or the hero in, and recognition, that's where the word recognition comes from. And we've got the 7 of Wands. Usually you see somebody standing on a cliff edge with a wand defending 6 others, defending himself. So this is where the fighting comes in, protecting. Excuse me. The 7 of Wands, like the 5, portrays a struggle, but here it is an evenly matched contest of men against men, rather than the creative hero pitted against the alien power of the earth dragon. The creative vision of the fleece, won in triumph from the dragon's claws, here leads to what we might call stiff competition. For Aetius also wants the fleece and is prepared to fight for it. Thus the recognition which came with the 6 here provokes the inevitable response. Somebody else wants what we have worked so hard for to achieve, and we are plunged into the contest, which challenges us to try even harder. The message is that we cannot rest on our laurels, or someone will come along and steal them. So that is where the stealing comes from. In the Seven of Swords, somebody sneaking away as well. It's beautiful how the cards all intertwine. So that's the story, a little bit of the story of number 7. The Eight of Wands represents a release of creative energy after the anxieties and struggles of 7 have been overcome. Conflict stimulates the imagination, and if we have been able to face it and see it through, there is often a period of smooth sailing where our plans proceed toward the goal at a rapid rate. That's the Eight of Wands. And here you can see, let's have a look, the torches, and those represent the wands. Where our plans proceed towards the goal at a rapid rate, and there is a feeling of buoyancy and confidence. This unlocking of energy only arises out of tensions being released, as though the confidence is gained only through triumphing over obstacles. Now, usually when we get the Eight of Wands, the Eight of Wands, you can see wands flying through the air or arrows. That means news, and nowadays it means cyber news because it goes through the air. Also traveling for work or going on holiday. Now we're going to the Nine of Wands, and you usually see a man that has been through the wars with a bandage around his head, resting on one of the wands. Here you've got like lighthouses, or rather the light, so that you can see where you're going to when you are at sea, and thunder and lightning. Ooh, it really looks awful. The Nine of Wands is a card of strength in reserve. It portrays the tremendous power of the creative imagination for just when we feel we cannot fight one more fight or confront one more difficulty. Somehow, in the midst of this stress, and the ideas and the energy become available to take on this final challenge. And that final challenge means an ending of a phase, and where there is an ending, there's a new beginning before the goal. The tattered sails of the Argo reflect the state of exhaustion of Jason and his crew, for they have passed through many tests and difficulties and are almost home with the Golden Fleece. Wow. That's where the buildings are, so they're nearly in the harbour. Now this is Jason, that's exhausted. Number 10, the 10 of Wands. The Argo's been battered like nobody's business, and the wands are just surrounded him. He feels imprisoned, like the heavy load on his back, but the Golden Fleece is there. So this is the last card, and then I'll go on to the characters. The 10 of Wands portrays a state of oppression. Jason has achieved everything he has set out to do, yet at the end of the tale, he is a sad figure, overburdened and weighed down with cares, while the once glorious ship Argo, carrier of heroes, lies mouldering. It is at first difficult to understand why this fiery tale of vision and heroic exploits should culminate in an image which is heavy and careworn, exhausted, in other words. But this last numbered card of the suit of wands tells something important about the creative imagination. It can no longer function when it has become trapped under the weight of the worldly responsibilities. There you go. Too much weight on his shoulders because he's the king. So that is this number 6 to 10. It's the last episode of the Mythic Tarot. Okay, and we're going to do the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. And I'm only going to take short paragraphs from the story, because if you go back to number 1 of the Wands, you've got the story. I've read that full out, and now it's just repeating it. So yes, here you've got Jason riding the golden sheep or ram. The Page of Wands, and I will go into the description of the pages and how they're dressed, and the people and the knight and the queen. The Page of Wands, the card of the Page of Wands, portrays a boy of around 12 years of age with curling auburn hair and wearing a pale orange tunic. He rides on the back of a golden fleeced ram, which flies over the yellow and green fields and streams, holding a flaming wand, whose fire streams out into the wind behind him. Ahead of him is a rising sun, which casts a vivid orange glow over the landscape. Here in this card of the Page of Wands, we meet the element of fire in its most delicate and fragile beginnings, the first stirrings of creative inspiration, which usually manifests as a kind of restlessness and unease with existing conditions. This is embedded in the mythic figure of Phrixus, whom we briefly met in the story of Jason and the Golden Fleece, which illustrates the numbered cards of the suit of wands. Phrixus really begins this tale, although he is not one of the heroes who partake in it, nor is he the god who presides over it, for it is he who takes the fleece out of danger and over the land and sea to the destined kingdom of Colzis. That's the two boys, the twins, and one fell off. That was in the story, so that you will hear that in the beginning of the Wands suit. Okay, Phrixus was the son of King Alphonsus. This Alphonsus was married to a phantom woman called Nephele. Or Nephele. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about my pronunciations. On the command of Zeus, and he bore him both the boy Phrixus and a girl called Hela. Okay, it's the twins. I thought it was two boys. So that is how far I'm going to go with the page, because that is just going into the story that one fell off and the other one reached Colzis. Now we're going on to the Knight of Wands, and I love this card because he's wearing a helmet and he's also got the flame, but this is Pegasus. If you know mythology, the story of mythology, then you know that that is Pegasus. And you've got the lion and a ram. So I don't know what god that is, but we might find out. The card of the Knight of Wands portrays an exuberant, flamboyant young man wearing a scarlet tunic and gold armor and helmet. He rides on a winged horse. A quiver of arrows is slung over his shoulder, and his hand he holds a flaming wand. This white horse is flying upward through the air, while below on the aureated coloured earth lies a dead monster which has been slain by a young man's arrow. The beast has the head of a lion and the body of a goat and a serpent's tail. Wow. Here is the card of the Knight of Wands. We meet the volatile, changeable, effervescent dimension of the element of fire, which is always in motion and perpetually seeking new challenges. This is embodied in the mythic figure of the hero Bellerophon, who mastered the wild-winged horse Pegasus and killed the monstrous Chimera, and I think that is the beast, and then was undone by his own arrogance as he tried to fly to Olympus, the abode of the gods. Bellerophon had to leave his native Corinth under a cloud for having killed a rival and then his own brother. These deeds were not committed through malice, but through two high spirits, and Bellerophon they sought sanctuary with King Proteus of Tyrrhenes. The Proteus' wife fell in love with a dashing and rather ambiguous young man, and although Bellerophon refused her advances, King Proteus believed she had been seduced and resolved to destroy the hero. And that is again the story, because in Jason's story, this is the journey. So he was helped by also the woman, the daughter of the king. This is the wife of the king, obviously. So go back and you'll hear the story. Okay, the Queen of Wands. The card of the Queen of Wands portrays a beautiful, radiant woman with rich golden hair, dressed in a saffron-colored robe and wearing a golden crown. She is seated on a golden throne whose arms are carved with lions' heads, and at her feet, on the golden chain, lies a sleeping lioness. In her hand is a flaming wand. Around her stretches a landscape of rich green and golden fields under a vivid blue sky. And that's why the Queen of Wands represents Leo, also because she's the second house in the zodiac signs. Okay, of fire. Here in the card of the Queen of Wands, we meet a stable, five-being, loyal dimensions of the element of fire, which warms and hardens as it inspires. This is embodied in the mythic figure of the Queen Penelope, the wife of the famous wandering hero Odysseus of Ithaca. At her birth, Penelope had been flung into the sea at her father Icarius' order, for he had hoped for a male child, but a flock of purple striped ducks buoyed her up, fed her and towed her ashore. Impressed by his prodigy, Icarius relented, aware that this young daughter must possess some special destiny. Well, there you go. I will read a little bit more because I didn't hear that in the story. When her husband Odysseus embarked for the Trojan War along with all the other Greek princesses, Penelope was left to run the island kingdom with only her young son Telemachus to help her. Presuming Odysseus' death, no less than 112 insolent young princes of the islands around Ithaca began to court Penelope, each hoping to marry her and take the throne, and they had agreed amongst themselves to murder Telemachus when they first asked Penelope to decide between them. She held faith with her intuition and her heart about her husband's safety and declared that he must certainly be alive. And there goes on, and the story goes on. Like I said, it's about 2 pages. We're going on to but then you know at least a little bit about the Queen. The Queen also stands for, that's where she had to rule the island alone. So that is the independent, being independent. That's where what she means. Also being creative, also being strategic in planning things, and also very intuitive. Okay, and she listens to her heart and her intuition. Although we don't really usually say that fire is intuitive, because it's usually the water signs. But she did use her intuition. And yeah, because the gods are spiritual in the pagan or Wiccan, it's a life, it's a belief, those are the gods. Okay, and so they are also holy because God is God, and or Zen or Buddha, and that is God. So that means in the spheres or in spirituality that they are also spiritual because they're spiritual beings. Okay, King of Wands. The card of the King of Wands portrays a handsome, fiery man with curling chestnut hair and beard. He is clad in rich crimson robe and a golden crown, and is seated on a golden throne whose arms are carved with golden ram's heads, and that's why it represents Aries. In his hand he holds a flaming wand. Around him are vivid green fields in which a ram can be seen poised with its head held high. Behind him rise the white pillars and porticos of a beautiful city crowned with an acropolis. Okay, that's like Rome or Olympia. It's beautiful. I love the art. It's so simple, but it's really clear. Here in the card of the King of Wands, we meet the active, dynamic, lordly dimension of the element of fire, which symbolizes the creative imagination. This is embodied in the mythic figure of King Theseus of Athens, whom we meet briefly or have met briefly in the numbered cards of the suit of wands as one of the companions of Jason on his adventure to capture the golden fleece. The King Theseus personifies all the exciting, outgoing, impulsive, bad-tempered, and tremendously infectious spirit of fiery energy. His mother, or Thera, was loved both by the god Poseidon and King Argus of Athens. Theseus was jointly fathered by them, but did not know of his origins until he was 16. He then set out on many dangerous adventures to claim his place as Agus' heir. He offered himself as one of the tribute of youths and maidens to be sent to Crete to be fed to the terrible Minotaur enchanted King Minos, daughter Ariana, into helping him destroy the monster and return to Athens in triumph, passing through not only violent combat with the monster but also fire, earthquake, riot and terrible seas. When he became king of Athens in Archias' place, he was full of new and brilliant ideas of how to unite the constantly warring Greek city-states, and through a combination of charm, good salesmanship, physical prowess, and flair of the dramatic and the brilliant mind, managed to persuade these independent and haughty lords to pull together under one yoke. over which he presided as High King. And that is the story of the wands. Now, mythology is interesting. I've got a very big book on mythology, and you just have to, you can compare one story with another author's story because it does change. But you can see, if you go to Cyprus, you can see all this back, or go to Crete, you can see a lot of this back in murals and museums. I've been there to Cyprus twice. I recommend it highly. It's very interesting and it's beautiful to listen to the stories. Also, the island of Aphrodite is in Cyprus. I hope you've enjoyed this series, and I certainly have. Again, reading them again and getting refreshed the memory, it's great. Although it's bloodthirsty and war, most usually between basically earthlings and the gods. I think it's amazing. I love the stories. Also, like the Helen from Troy, that comes also into this. So, and there's a lot of Hollywood films. You can find them on YouTube with these stories. I hope you've enjoyed it. Take care, stay safe, and be blessed. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.